bom dia, Munson here from expatsportugal.com with the Good Morning Portugal show. How are you this morning? Let's see who's here. One person who isn't here, who I'm rather hoping will be, is Andy the Doc Thompson. Because he's here with I think what will prove to be a rather scathing takedown of the UK government's science and positioning on withdrawing its relationship with Portugal and moving Portugal from its green list to its amber list. And Doc has prepared a fine presentation, which I have before me, but I don't have a doc before me, sadly. So let's hope, let's keep our fingers crossed, shall we? Shall we go into a kind of group meditation or intention experiment to have him on our screens with us? Hope he's okay this morning. Can't raise him. In the modern age, you kind of make an assumption, don't you, that people are okay when you get the two little ticks on WhatsApp. But that only means their phone's okay. So we're looking forward to hearing from you, Doc. Paul Richards is in already this morning. Good morning to you, Paul. Greetings from San Rafael. Bit cloudy this morning, bit warm. Oh, but warm. I beg your pardon. Bit cloudy, but warm. Can't wait to hear what the Doc has to say in his usual non-biased opinions. There we go. There's someone who knows Doc and his medico-political a view of the world. I'm looking forward to it, I've got to say. I think he's right. But open to challenge and your comments as well, of course, as you're doing right now. Good morning from sunny Santarém, where it's due to be 34 degrees today, scorcher in the Ribatejo Valley, and sunny Santarém there from Thomas Malloy from our Ask Our Expats team. Book those guys one-to-one on the Ask Our Expats tab, expatsportugal.com. Jacqueline CDM is here. Very good attendance recently, Jacqueline, I have to say. Gold star for you. Bon dia, everyone from the Silver Coast. Paul, I'm guessing it's going to get spicy. as if we can find the fella. Morning, people from Lee McGrady. Can we have a review from you, Lee? You went on a spa break. I hope I'm not breaching any confidence there. No, because you published that publicly on Facebook, didn't you? You went north in Portugal for a spa weekend. Where'd you go? What was it like? What did you see on the way? I see you had a few pints. It was looking like Lee's Pint goes on tour. Various pictures of Lee's Pint from around Portugal. Looks like you had a good time, but maybe a little. Can we get a bit more detail on how it was and a bit of a review of the establishment you went to? Hello from Gary Austin this morning. Great work last night, Gary. Thank you very much for your support with that. I really appreciate it. Maxine Williams, bon dia from London this morning. Bon dia, alegria de Londres this morning. What's it like in London this morning, Maxine? City of my childhood and teenage years. Born in Kingston, Surrey, a royal borough, I believe. But grew up in and around London. So what's it like there this morning, Maxine? Bon dia from Stephen Wells. He might be on the school run. Yeah, I've got some other intel which suggests that hasn't been possible. But, I don't know. Things change, don't they? That's the world we're living in. Pivoting, agility, sudden change. That's where disruption. So you may well be right there, Gary. Good morning, all from sunny Suffolk. And in fact, you're going back to Gary's point. He may well just turn up in a lay-by talking to us in a random place from the Portuguese countryside, as he's done before, or his car park or his living room. Adventurous fellow. Bearders 22. Good morning, all from sunny Suffolk. I need to take a sip of my tea. Sadly, not sponsored or fueled by Mrs. M's. Excellent coffee this morning. That was great yesterday. That really put some lead in my pencil and some wind in my sails. Sadly, not repeated this morning. She was up doing a webinar herself. Very busy at the moment. Speaking to all manner of amazing people around the world. Up at 7 this morning, talking to somebody in Bali. Eat, love, pray, and get up early. Good morning, all then from Bearders 22. How is sunny Suffolk this morning? Hey, watch out! Boxing coach Chris is here. Hello, Cobra. Do you ever cover the subject of nasty bits in Portugal, theft, crime, or trouble expats experience? No, never, because there isn't any. Chris. Only kidding. It is a standing joke, actually, Chris, that I am the Portuguese Pollyanna. And I tend not to cover those sorts of things. But, we do from time to time, to be fair. And not averse to covering it. It's fair to say that Portugal does get voted a great and safe place to live over and over again. But if there's an article, news article to share, or a way of avoiding those sorts of things, because isn't that what we want to do, or a way of addressing them politically or whatever, more than happy to address those, Chris. And if you want to find out more from people who live here, obviously Expats Portugal Forum is the place to go and ask. It could be subject in the forum, nasty bits or something like that. But I hope you're well, Chris. How are things with you? And I'm looking forward to shaking your manly hand in Portugal sometime soon. A hand that has brushed my face from time to time, along with others, where we had the most amazing few months working with you as our boxing coach, Chris. So shout out, good morning to you. Maxine Williams saying, yes, it will be interesting from London if we ever speak to him. And I've got the presentation, but I don't think I could do it justice going through it on my own. So for the time being, I will go solo and answer anything about Portugal as best as I can, along with my great friends in the community and the comments here. Okay, so if you're new to the show, and actually that's not a bad place to start, Chris, given that you've mentioned it. What are the downsides? Mrs. M is known more for her public appearances, slagging off Portugal. No, not slagging off, just being a bit more, I don't know, not realistic, but or down and dirty or anything like that. Just like, she talks of other aspects of like mold and things like that, and cold weather, which I just don't want to talk about. Basically, didn't come here for that. So would anybody in the comments like to address Chris's excellent mention there and the challenge to my my condition of being a bit of a Portuguese Pollyanna? What's your experience of theft, crime, or trouble when it gets a bit dicey and spicy, I think we're probably talking, as we are all around the world, of the bigger conurbations and tourist areas where that sort of thing is more likely to happen. Other sorts of troubles, of course, in the countryside, and it's not a complete rural idyll, but I guess where you get more people and more poverty, people not knowing each other, breakdown of community. Those are the conditions, aren't they, in which these things can thrive. So do let us know. Do let us know what might be concerning you about life in Portugal. This is a 360-degree view of Portugal, even though it can be a bit rose-tinted from the Carl Munson point of view. So do let us know. Paul Williams, hola bon dia from a sunny Hampshire. We'll be back on July the 8th, the day after my birthday, Paul. Fantastic. Good to hear it. Bon dia to everyone from a beautiful day in Torres Vedras, which I'm still looking forward to going to. I believe it's a little bit of a spiritual place. Torres Vedras. I'm looking forward to going there at some point soon. Thank you for your earlier info about Torres Vedras, Susan, and bigging it up and shouting it out. Bon dia, Colin and Hakeem from a sunny London. So it's sunny this morning. Which bit of London? Should we talk a bit about London this morning? Colin and Hakeem, good morning to you both. Bon dia, alegria. And Taximan Edmundo. I mean, this is exactly the sort of person who Doc is talking about, I think, this morning, where the impact on a very foolish decision is felt by the likes of Edmundo and his friends and family down there in the Algarve. A massive blow to the Portuguese economy and specifically the Algarve. Edmundo still gracious and great enough to be turning up and saying bon dia to us from Villamoura this morning. I hope your business did experience a profitable surge, Edmundo, and that the situation can resolve very soon so that you can continue to do so. But how are things from your point of view, Edmundo? Do let us know. He's our man on the ground there if ever you need an airport transfer. He's your fella. Yes, very warm in London. Not as warm as Portugal, though. Although, with the way things are, it has been, hasn't it, recently? It has been warmer. The bragging coming from this side of the water where it's noticeably quiet in the last few months. But I think we're going to get the edge. And actually, whilst we're talking about such matters of pictures from Portugal, the weather, etc. I started off a beautiful little trend yesterday of people sending in their pictures. And I do have a few more that came in too late for me to manage them. Not a criticism of those correspondents who sent them. It's just it was quite a busy show yesterday. I didn't get around to showing them. And I've got some lovely pictures for you here. And they came from Max. And where can I find out what I'm wanting to say here? Here we go. These are from a restaurant. Talking of what we're missing in Faro now, because the Brits and North Americans can't get to Faro yet as tourists, or anyone for that matter. These pictures I'm about to show you are from the Alameda. Have you been here, Edmundo? The Alameda restaurant in Faro. Lovely guys who run it, talented young chefs, Struggling, obviously, as so many people are with the pandemic, with COVID. Can we give them a shout out? We certainly can. So here are some the Alameda restaurant in Faro. Here are some pictures of their cuisine. The Cobra, not the Cobra. I'm the Cobra. The boxing coach Chris might like these. Also, a bit of a dab hand in the kitchen. Professional chef. Not sure quite what that is. Is that an anchovy wrapped around something rather? Oh, probably some caviar or something. Served on some couscous. Or I don't know, but it looks rather good, doesn't it? And are they? Oh, that's fish. I thought it was some of those guzu pastry, little Asian parcels of goodness. But that's looking like a bit of a fish dish with some seaweed possibly going on there. I haven't got the descriptions, unfortunately, but my mouth is certainly watering seeing these. Beautiful presentation, beautiful food. That's a long shot, isn't it? That you can see of that fish dish there. My mouth is watering such that it's making it difficult to speak. And there's a beautiful looking dessert as well from the Alameda restaurant. So Alameda restaurant Faro, put them on your list for when you can get back to Portugal and support those guys. Another picture that came in was from another one of our Ask Our Expats team, Ana Vieira, who is the expert of lifestyle and location over there in Cascais. Here she is, it would appear, in Lisbon. That's the weather. That's the sky color. That's the jacaranda tree in Rocio. I think that could be Rocio or another one of Lisbon's legendary praças there. But isn't that a beautiful picture from Lisbon from Anna? I think it came in yesterday. So do send them in. 913-590-303 is my WhatsApp number. Maybe I should pop that in the comment or on the screen for a moment. Seriously, it says in capital letters, ask anything about Portugal. Get those questions coming in, hoping that Doc will join us soon. Pics and voice messages to the studio on that WhatsApp number 913-590-303. Time to have a little sip of tea or water just to lubricate the machinery, my vocal machinery. Stand by just one moment. That's always a surprise, isn't it? When you pick up a glass of water and it's sparkling water, but you've forgotten that it's sparkling water. You think, oh dear, what happened there? Beautiful cuisine, excellent food is Edmundo's. I think so. He may know the Alameda restaurant as well. Thank you for that bit of food back. Yeah, it is feedback there. Fantastic. Thank you, Edmundo. Let's scroll way back up to your comments that are coming in thick and fast, which is fantastic. Bon dia from Ericeira, from Rui Costa this morning. Good morning to you, Senor Costa. Good morning from Noor as well. Good morning, expats. Good morning to you, Noor. And Portuguese locals as well who tune into the show. All sorts. Everybody welcome here on the Good Morning Portugal show. But that's a good shout there, Noor. And how am I? Well, that's very kind of you to ask. Muito bom, obrigado, Edmundo. And if I say, eu consigo, yesterday got the hottest at 40 degrees centigrade. Good heavens. Good heavens. And this isn't helping when we're telling the people back home, Paul, that we're getting temperatures like that and they can't come for stupid reasons, as we hope to find out from the doc in a little while. Not bad for June, only in the Algarve. A little bit of a dig there. It's too hot for me, Paul. You can have your 40 degrees, and your burnt skin at the end of the day that you need an aloe vera leaf for. Hello from Reba Ma. Only here for the start. Cannot listen to people knocking the system. Oh, Colin, not keen on what's about to come by the sound of it. Knocking the system at all, Colin? No knocking here for you. That's an interesting position. Knocking the British government's response? You're not keen to hear that? I mean, governments have been known to make mistakes, Colin. Or do you just not like that sort of negativity? Tell us more if you haven't gone already. Is it necessary to be vaccinated for the D7 visa? Not as I understand it, Noor. It's not a connection. It's not directly connected to as a visa requirement. It's more connected to the coming into the country on the border, and it's still not a requirement to be vaccinated, but you have to show a test and or a vaccination certificate, I believe, unless things have changed in the recent times, and I'm sure we will be put right in the comments as far as that goes. So no, not a requirement for visas. That wouldn't be right, would it? Anyway, that's maybe we'll come onto our radar for discussion if and when the doc joins us. Mrs. T, Chris's great friend and mentor, says keep bees. Put beware sign up as it deters intruders. Okay, so beware of the bees signs possibly there as a security suggestion. All sorts this morning on the Good Morning Portugal show. Lynn Elliott, good morning from North Carolina this morning. And we still haven't figured it out. And you might be able to help us with this. This is my question on Ask Anything About Portugal, is why is it that there are so many, why is there such a focus of people in North Carolina with an interest in Portugal? It really, you know, in terms of mathematics statistics, it is a very interesting and so far inexplicable trend that we have so many people from wonderful people, and it's great to have so much attention for Portugal. But why from a specific area, specific state of North Carolina, I wonder? Can you answer that, Lynn? I don't mean to put you on the spot. There may well be, of course, others from North Carolina tuning in because of what I've just said there. Gary Austin, I think it's Portugal Day tomorrow. Thanks for the heads up on that. You may have noticed I'm not the best, the May West, as it were, on Portuguese holidays. Often celebrate them the day after on this show and say, oh, you know that holiday we had yesterday? Well, here's the reason we have it. Hope you had a good one. But that's good to get ahead. Is it Portugal Day tomorrow? Let's see if we can confirm that and maybe give you a bit of info and a heads up ahead of time for a change. Milda, bon dia to you. Milda Sorien and Bearders22 just found that an annual travel insurer, some good. Oh no, not good intel by the look of it. Is a thanks Boris at the end of it. And I think that might be meant sarcastically. Just found an annual travel insurer who will cover amber list countries. Last year we paid 220 as a couple, 220 quid. Now it's 600. Thank you, Boris. There you go. More of that to come with any luck. Great. Not more of that to come, but more of a comment about that to come if we can locate the doc. Great people until they drive. And anyone's guess what they will do next. Colin, this is the man who's leaving the show because he doesn't like knocking the system. But he doesn't mind the odd national stereotype there. Great people until they drive. Colin, honestly, point taken. Driving is different in Portugal. I'm going to say different rather than be critical or knocking it. My driving has changed, I have to say. There's a question for you. If you've been here for a while, as I have now, a few years, has your driving style changed to suit the conditions on the road here? I think it is safe to say it is very different from the way people drive in the UK. And previously, you know, to not be a Portuguese Pollyanna, Portugal has been reported as being one of the most dangerous places to drive based on the statistics. I think it's about retraining and attitude. And actually, you know, the idea, I mean, I don't know if this is taught specifically by driving instructors anymore, but getting on the road and assuming that other people want to kill you is quite a good position to take. You know, that it's very dangerous and you have to keep your wits about you. You cannot let up for one moment whilst you're whilst you're controlling a lethal machine, which is a car, right? And that there are other people like that around you a lot of the time. One thing that I was reminded of yesterday, actually, Colin, is how people you can be going around a bend. I don't mean mentally. I mean actually physically in your car, and somebody will be coming the other way, and they'll be in the middle of the road, and they'll see you, and they'll move over, and you'll think to yourself, well, why don't they just stick on their side of the road in the first place? But that's what happens, and people see you, and at the last minute they move over, and you can let it ruin your day, and you can be, or you could be like, oh, okay, yes, and parking on a roundabout. Saw someone parking in town yesterday in the city of Caldas. People like parking on roundabouts here, which should be like, I think, a ticketable offence. It might even be here. That's something that occurred to me. I think people tend to challenge parking law here until moved on, rather than thinking maybe I just shouldn't do this in the first place. So there's a bit of that. And any more comments about driving and driving safety more specifically, to please share them in the comments. Thank you for your comment there, Colin. Good morning, neighbour. If I could bring you a coffee, I would, but I send a virtual for what it is worth. Thank you, Jacqueline. Received. And let's see what virtual effect that has this morning. I've got a tea. I'm not complaining. I've got a tea in me believe in people mug. That I've had a few years now. And Mrs. M gave me that. Me believe in people mug. And yes, and good morning to you. Bon dia alegria to you, Donna Jacqueline, this morning. And Lee McGrady is saying, if the doctor doesn't turn up, give me a call. Yes. So Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining on this flight this morning. Good morning, Portugal. Flight EP01 from Lisbon and flying over and admiring the view over Lisbon. Is there a doctor? Please, no need to get alarmed, but is there a doctor on board who might be able to deliver a presentation that we've got? Thank you. Enjoy your flight. Cabin to cross-check. Great spiritual pizza place. There's a great spiritual pizza place in Torres Vedras, everybody. What is it? The Om Shanti or the Namaste Pizza House? I wonder, Jacqueline. Thank you for that. We'll get a takeaway one of these evenings, Jacqueline, from there. I think we'll have to do that if you approve of that particular pizza place in Torres Vedras, not too far from here. I will raise a glass. Thank you, Paul, for your birthday on the ferry from Plymouth on the 7th. Yes! You're very welcome. Sounds great. And we must, of course, raise a glass together at some point, Paul. Perivale, seen on the tube line. There are places in London that you've only ever heard about by when you're sat bored on a tube, looking at the tube line, thinking, I wonder what that place is like. Ongar, what's that like? And here's another one. I'm not sure I've been to Perivale. I used to live over in West London, though. Perivale, Ealing, probably have, living next to the Grand Union Canal, the GUC over there. Thank you, Colin and Hakeem. I bet it's lovely over that way. Chris Thomas, top of the morning from Olhão this morning. A nice mixture of Irish and Portuguese this morning. How's it looking? Feel free to send those pics in still, everybody. 913-590-303. Chris Thomas, how's it looking in Olhão this morning? We could talk about the bin fairies. That's a lovely thing to talk about, Gary. Do you want to start that off there? The bin fairies. We'll just leave that hanging there for a moment for people to guess what that might be. But it is a fabulous phenomenon in Portugal. You're absolutely right. We have talked about this, haven't we? As one of those things that you probably wouldn't find out about before you moved here and becomes apparent over time. One of those lovely things. And I think we can put it in the overlap in the Portuguese Venn diagrams of Portuguese moments. It's lovely when that happens as well, I think, too. But have you been, just to add further intrigue to Gary's comment there about bin fairies, have you been a recipient, Gary, of that goodness, as well as the purveyor of that kind of goodness, I wonder, because I have. Robert Ryan, bon dia from Cornwall. How's Cornwall? Bracing yourselves in Cornwall, I suspect. The Ryan, Casa Ryan there, with the staycationing in the UK. Devon and Cornwall will benefit from that. And it was Gary's rather cynical political comment yesterday that Boris is going to look very good by stopping people travelling to Portugal because it's going to boost the UK economy. And in a few months or years' time, say, look at this economy. Even in the pandemic, I was able to have an amazing economy here in this country where I am at the helm. Edmundo Viegas, beautiful cuisine, excellent food was the report. Edmundo's view of Alameda there. Hola, bon dia de Australia from Dr. 3W79, Drew 79. Oh, I got it. I understand now. And all that time I've been trying to make sense of it. It's obviously Drew 79, isn't it? The 3 is an E. Thank you for deciphering that. Australia has had some bad news today. Oh dear. Looking towards sunny Portugal for some inspiration. What's happened? What's happened in Oz this morning? I'm not all over the news this morning globally. Drew, what happened? Restaurant, oh, fantastic. Restaurant AlmedaFaro.com. Make a reservation. Wouldn't that cheer them up if you make a reservation or even suggest paying it forward? Here's 50 euros, fellas, on account. We're coming in at some point as soon as we're allowed, and we're going to have a slap-up meal at your place. Restaurante AlmedaFaro.com is the place to do that. And say, yeah, we were talking about you on the Good Morning Portugal show. Max says you're awesome. So does Edmundo. And it looks like Chris might be saying that as well. Last minute notice from Edmundo, Taximan Edmundo this morning, transfer expert. European community issue, free digital certificates allowing European citizens to free travel inside, except for the UK, as you might imagine. Okay, so there's going to be a digital certificate. What do you have to do to get one, though, Edmundo? What will your status have to be? I wonder. Is this the vax certificate coming in, being snuck in that way? Jersey, hola bon dia from a warm Long Island this morning. It just sounds funny, Jersey. I'm pleased for you, but it just sounds funny that you've got a warm Long Island there. Gary Austin, 40 degrees. Wait till summer gets going, says Gary. Yeah, the Tamar temperatures. Alvazra over there You can rival that, can't you, at the best of times, Gary, for sure. Drew. No, not Drew. A different YouTube combo of letters and numbers. Bon dia. There are wonderful people in Oregon as well. Oh, I didn't mean to suggest any kind of favoritism. I was just, don't take it the wrong way, Jonesy. Of course, there are wonderful people in Oregon, but there's a concentration in North Carolina of people interested in moving to Portugal. Still haven't found out why, but no favoritism intended. We have our favorites, obviously, but we can't say that live on air. PM me for that. Independence Day is the 10th. Okay. Okay, thank you for that, Paul. Anyone got a link that we can just open up and have a chat about that happening tomorrow in Portugal? Getting quite concerned about the doc now. I've sent him a message. I don't know what else I can do, really. I'm not going to ruin his presentation by delivering it myself. But this usually on a Wednesday, on this particular Wednesday of the month, the second Wednesday, the doc's in, second and fourth Wednesdays. It's the residency where you can talk about politics comes into it occasionally, but medical stuff as well. He's an absolute authority as you would expect from a retired doctor, but also specifically the Portuguese angle. Dzień dobry from Poland this morning, from Barbara. Good morning to you. Dzień dobry to you. And there we go. Thomas is satisfying us there with a Wikipedia listing of Portugal Day. So we'll have a look at that in a moment, and we'll hold the. We might have to move the doc's presentation into the man cave on Friday, perhaps. Yes, that might be a way of doing it, but hopefully he'll turn up soon and we'll be able to do it this morning. But keep those questions, all is not lost, because keep those questions coming in about Portugal. Ask anything about Portugal Day, always on a Wednesday, whether the doc's here or not. Lynn Elliott says, a lot of people from North Carolina have also moved to other areas. There are a lot of nomads here. So is it the nomad epicenter of the United States? And it's not about Portugal necessarily. It's about the energy and vibe of people in North Carolina. They like moving. Okay. Bon dia, a shouty one from Will this morning. Carl, can I pop in for a shower? Only joking. Mother Day by the beach. Still haven't caught a fish or seen anyone else catch one either, which would be very annoying because the fish taunt you. I mean, they swim into the shallows. Big fellas, right? Both at the seaside here at Foz de Relio, what's it called, Douradinho, and at the Óbidos Lake there. Huge fish. And the herons in there catching one fish after another. The human fishermen, however, like Will here, are looking on thinking, what do I have to do to get a fish here? Now, what I don't understand is it a Mother Day or another day by the beach? Which sounds like a sort of a boast for a rather excellent lifestyle there, Will. Or is your mother visiting? Is that why you need to get a shower? And you still haven't caught a fish or seen anyone else catch one either there. So any fishing tips this morning? Best way to catch the native fish of Portugal. What do people fish for generally here? Obviously, there's an excellent sea fishing tradition in Portugal, but inland, what is it you're trying to catch out the water there at the Óbidos Lagoon, Will? And just a little bit of trivia: you can buy a fishing license from a multi-banco machine. I'm told as well. Not done it myself, but that's possible and doable. And you can probably get all sorts of licenses from multi-banco machines, as well as all the other amazing things you can do. Not yet can you get a coffee from a multi-banco machine, but I imagine that's in the pipeline, honestly, given that you can probably get a coffee. You know, in Portugal, you're never more than 10 meters away from a cafe here, or a cafe nata situation, which is another great thing about Portugal. Bon dia, everyone. Question: what is the best, in brackets, legal? Thank you for that, Jonathan. Way to get British TV in Portugal? Thanks. Go to our business directory, and we have a purveyor of such services. But other services are available. I think there will be other answers to that. But make it easy for yourself. Go to the Expats Portugal Business Directory. I might even handhold you all the way there, Jonathan, this morning, because we do have a partner in that particular line of business that we can share with you. But you can go yourself to expatsportugal.com, business-directory. This is a nice description. Enthusiastic drivers is one way to describe. It's the Latin temperament. And there's also, in one theory I've heard, is a little bit of displacement going on of how the restrained and relaxed and calm Portuguese personality, finds the expression of its shadow self behind the wheel. That's a more kind of a doc might be able to verify that if we speak to him this morning, from a sort of medical psychological point of view. I used to do 10,000 miles a month in the UK, and I would see an accident a month. Here I do 5,000 miles a year, and I see one accident a week. It could be reticular activation. Excuse me. Can you hear what's happening to my voice? Got to have a sip of tea. Now, there was a special video made for these moments, thanks to the wonderful video maker who is Peter Wilton Davis, who makes our intro and outro. But he also made a please stand by that would allow me to have a sip of coffee, etc. I don't think there's enough time for a comfort break. Let me see what happens when I press this. It's just a chance to sing the company song while I have a sip of tea and clear my throat there to spare you of that, of that level of intimacy. Fantastic, Pete. That is what that's for. May have confused people. I might have thought, oh, the show is starting or ending. But no, just a little please stand by notice. How fantastic is that? And I didn't know how long it was going to go on for until the 10-second countdown began, and I had to get a bit of a wiggle on. But I hope you're able to do a little jig while that was on. Okay, English people driving in Portugal. That's the problem. Kamikaze, special fresh arrivals out of the airports. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being somebody who lives near the roads just outside? You've got in from on a flight, and you are, mate, you're not going to be jet lagged, are you? Probably on a flight from UK to Portugal. But you are going to be a little bit discombobulated and thinking, hold on a minute, which side of the road am I meant to be on? Which road am I meant to be on to get to the accommodation? And I imagine there are some priceless sites. So yes, right back at you, Colin, from Edmundo there, with some of the sites Edmundo may well have seen on the road out of the airport, with foreigners behind the wheel as well. I spent a year on a military base south of Riyadh. Here we go. This is going to put Faro temperatures in the shade. See what I did there? Chris Thomas says, and I'll tell you where it was and what we were doing, but I'd have to kill you. I see. Okay, say no more. Say no more, Chris Thomas. Having arrived 1 month before 9/11/2001. Okay, gotcha. It was 55 degrees centigrade in the shade every day during the summer, getting down to 41 degrees at night. No let up. Can you imagine trying to sleep in 41 degrees at night? So why complain about a high of 40 degrees? I played golf yesterday afternoon and it was delightful. With a full pack on as well, I bet, Chris. I bet you could. Golf sticks on the back and show these civvies a thing or two. Honestly, moaning about 40 degrees. What do you like? Thank you for that, Chris. Drew, I feel the roads contribute. I mean the design, the width, the camber. Always nice to be able to put the word camber into the conversation, don't you think? Or even an adverse camber from time to time. Yes, sometimes the roads can contribute. That seems to be the favoured topic of conversation this morning, driving in Portugal. But I think you're right. And no one really knowing what to do on a roundabout doesn't help. I see Gary is on the Facebook comments side. Tell him I said hi. And thanks for the words of support. Fan mail starting to flood in. Okay, yeah, so Will Thompson, our occasional contributor and legend, let's face it, about COVID and the pandemic and the coronavirus, right from the get-go. Now on BitChute, some of the things he says have appeared to be too unpalatable for Facebook and YouTube. Who it would appear like a particular kind of narrative. They don't like it up them any awkward challenges to some of the to the bandwidth of communication. May I put it that way? Unlike us here, of course. And so Will has taken to BitChute. If you were a fan or are a fan of Will's work and you want to see his daily contributions to the conversation about the pandemic and where we go from here and his concerns, which have been pretty spot on, it has to be said, consistently, go to BITCHUTE BitChute to find Will, and feel free, Will, to put in a link direct to your collection of presentations in our comments. But yeah, I'm sure Gary got that. Gary is a diamond geezer, as he proved again to me last night. We were in communication last night. Thanks, Gary, from me and from Will. Tomorrow, June the 10th, day of Camões and Portugal. So we will have a little bit of a look at that before we go today. That will be our alternative viewing in place of the presentation, which looks like it's not going to happen this morning, but it will happen at some point. Don't you worry about that. That's so June the 10th, an important day in the Portuguese calendar. I'm glad we found that out. Just dropped in to say hello. Good morning to you, Donna Graça. Hello, bon dia. Beijinhos, abrazos to you. Prosecco Peggy is in the house, everybody. And it looks like she's already on the Prosecco. Look at that comment, if you will. Peggy Luttrell in the Algarve. Just like Paul, not afraid to sing the praises of the Algarve. But she's in the houser. I think she's had one or two already this morning. And why not? Good morning to you. Wonderful, Peggy. And it was you actually who I have to thank for. You sent me some wonderful pictures of your homestead and life in down there in the Algarve, which prompted me to ask other people. I didn't get your permission to show your pictures of your beautiful homestead, so give me clearance on that if you're happy for me to share them, Peggy. You're going down a dangerous road. Nicely done there. I didn't call Portuguese drivers bad, Paul. Point of order. They have an excuse. They are Portuguese. That's not helping either, is it, Paul Richards? Quite frankly. Jacqueline Branco, good morning from a beautiful Gairas Obidos. Good morning to you. Bon dia to you, Jacqueline Branco. I don't think you took me up on my invitation to speak about your new business, expat-based business. I think it's yours, isn't it? You're certainly promoting it, Jacqueline. Feel free to do so in our comments here and on the Expats Portugal forum. Ideal place for it if you're not already there. Dzień dobry from Jersey to Barbara there. The bin fairies. Okay, I only figured it out when I was camping, caring and doing research at 6 a.m. They sneak in and they sneak away again in a flash. So yeah, okay, well, we'll leave it hanging there a little bit longer before we explain there, Gary, me and Will. And yeah, Gary, 6 a.m. What's it like at 6 a.m.? You'll have to tell us, Will. Gary Austin, the local driving school instructor, took us to Leiria to sort out our driving licenses. After we got there, I wanted to kill her because her driving scared me so much. That's a driving instructor he's talking about there. It's different. So a little bit of a white knuckle ride, safe to say. Back to bin fairies. The Portuguese waste very little and make do or mend, which is very refreshing in our throwaway world. Okay, so bin fairies. If you're when you get to Portugal and you go to the bin and you might have your black bag full of stuff. And why? I mean, while I'm on the subject, does anyone use that little bit of long string of plastic that happens to be on quite a lot of bin bags, right? I know you're meant to use it to tie up the bag, but what a nuisance that thing is. And does anyone actually use it? And wouldn't that be a way of cutting down on plastic waste in our world? Is for the bin bag manufacturers of the world to stop putting that plastic shoelace on the bottom of bin bags. Okay, so anyway, you get to the bins, and the bin provision is really very good. And what should I be calling it for Americans? Trash. Refuse. For those speaking the Queen's English, we'll call it refuse. We'll call it rubbish or rubbish for other parts of Britain. But trash, rubbish, litter, waste, whatever. And so if it's really full on horrible, nappies and goodness knows what, it's straight in the green dumpster, right? And there's one of those. Just like coffee here, you're never far away from a green dumpster in Portugal. It's fantastic. And never far away either from the recycling facilities, sometimes together, sometimes not. And it seems to be a requirement of new builds. There's got to be this sort of facility nearby. And the bin men always seem to be out. They're collecting daily, it looks like, in parts of Portugal where I've lived. But if you've got things that you want to get rid of, in Britain, the tradition would be to take it to a charity shop or have it collected by a charity. In Portugal, if you've got some sort of borderline bits that you don't want, but are still might be useful to somebody, and that what definition or parameter is for other people to decide, because the seemingly most useless and worn out things may well be of use to somebody. So if it's in that bandwidth and borderline, put it by the side. and what's great in Portugal is if you've got the see-through bin bags, not bin bags, the see-through refuse bags or rubble bags that also the pellets come in, put that stuff in there. Anything you don't want anymore but might be useful to somebody else, side of the bin. People come along, check it out, take it. And I've taken things as well as left things there. It's a great and unofficial system. I think that's what Gary means by the bin fairies. You can take pretty much anything. As I've said here, I did wake up one morning. We had one of these, dumpster situations opposite one of the houses we lived at. Woke up one morning to about 500 wine bottles that someone had put there. From a brewing application, not their consumption of wine, but probably a cellar clearance of somebody who used to make wine. There they were. Truck came along, took them away. It was fantastic. One-upmanship in fairy bins. I love the practice, says Donna Jacqueline here. Yes. So I guess what is that the battle to leave the best stuff, or the battle to get the best stuff first that you're referring to there, Donna Jacqueline? Lynelle, my sister and I are coming over to house hunt. Oh, that sounds like fun. Do use our property search service, Lynn. We plan on renting a car and traveling north for sightseeing also. Is that wise, or are we going to perish on the roads? No, that's been a bit scary this morning, isn't it? I mean, you've got to be careful. It's different. That's what I'll say. And drive very carefully, which you should be doing anyway, right? Is that wise? Or are we going to perish on the roads? That sounds so sad, doesn't it? We are poor little lambs. We'll perish on the roads. No, you're going to be fine. Keep your wits about you. It surely can't be worse than driving in Asia. Again, very different. Or driving around down the Champs-Elysees and around the Arc de Triomphe. We've all been in we haven't all been in it, but we may have driven in different parts of the world. And the thing is, first and foremost, it's different. And once you fall into line with the local customs, I mean, I don't think when I went to India, I didn't drive in India. But how there aren't more crashes there, I don't know. But it's learning how to drive in the local way. That's what I suggest you do, Lynn. Don't live in fear. And maybe that prompts possibly a special on this, doesn't it? A webinar maybe on, proactive Portuguese driving skills. Let's talk about it this morning as well, of course. But Lynn, no, please don't be afraid. Be prepared. A very good, we're using the driving metaphor there, but isn't that good advice for all of life? When you feel yourself getting scared about something, take a look, get yourself prepared, go to your go-tos for finding courage and bravery in this world in which we live in. Far too much fear and scaremongering, and too little of preparedness and courage and digging in and character and blah, 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 and all those sorts of things. So, Lynn, please don't be afraid by what's being said this morning. Get yourself prepared and we'll help you to do that. Driving tips required. There you go. That's something for the Expats Portugal Forum. Eira Linda, bon dia from a Portuguese in Finland. Good morning to you. How lovely watching the show for the first time. You're not alone. We do have some connections in Finland, Eira. So very good morning to you. Portuguese living in Finland, Portuguese all over the world. And there's proof. 3 days last year, it went over 50. This is going back to the temperature in central Portugal, not in Faro. I don't know how much because it broke the thermometer. There you go. Stephen Nolan, thanks for that, Gary. Bon dia from Stephen Nolan in a wet Dublin. Look forward to our holidays in Portugal later on. That's a philosophical, non-moany comment about not being able to get here right now. Looking forward to that too, Stephen. Fingers crossed, eh? Good morning, Carl. Good to hear your voice. Haven't been able to listen in the mornings. There's too much going on in the quinta with animals and plants in the mornings. That's a very good excuse, Mag. Good morning to you and lovely to have your company here. Peggy is saying, she's definitely on the Prosecco. Look at this. I'm getting wonderful cherry tomatoes. Oh, I can't be bothered finishing this comment from my garden. I'm thinking there. But the cherry tomatoes, I mean, everything's starting to come into bloom now, isn't it? It's fantastic. And, and to fruit, it's fantastic time of year. I bet the smell of those cherry tomatoes is wonderful as well, Peggy. Carolina Kirk, bon dia from sunny Villa de Conde. Have a lovely day, everyone. What a lovely greeting. Thanks, Carolina. Can you ring his phone in case he is asleep? Should we try that live? Because his phone might be, of course, receiving. So, we can't take it for granted, can we, that the 2 ticks is a sign of personal safety as yet. Okay, so we'll try the doc live and see what happens. Good call, Jacqueline. That's why you get paid the big bucks, obviously, with advice like that. So we'll try ringing the doc now while I continue with me comments here. The COVID digital certificate will be issued by the Portuguese authorities to a common EU model. More info still awaited. Target is 1st of July for the system to be live across the EU. Sorry if I'm making you panic if you think that's your phone ringing. It's like when you're in a Portuguese supermarket and a ringtone happens. Like everyone looks down, don't they? No, he's not picking up, is he? Good call, Jacqueline. In a sense, but not a good call. Not connecting there. I'm trying to turn it off. There we go. You say thank you for that, Thomas Malloy. More info still awaited. Target is 1st of July for the system to be live across the EU. Probably trying to figure out how to work around infringements of civil liberties, possibly, and private companies getting their hands on people's medical data. It is an issue, right? Barbara, probably I spend my holiday in December in Miranda de Corvo in Portugal. Wonderful, wonderful part of the world. Philomena, of course, who joins us on Philomena Friday. Oh, here we go. He's incoming. The doc is on the other end of the line as we speak. Hey, Doc, how are you?
I'm so sorry. I am really sorry.
You're live on air. You're live on air. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm sure I ended up down a rabbit hole with some coding and didn't realise the time. Anyway, okay. Let me just bring this. I won't be able to join you on video, but let me just bring my presentation up. And,
oh, excellent! So, are we gonna do it now?
Yeah, if that's okay.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And we have.
So sorry.
No, don't you worry. Don't you worry. That sounds so intriguing. It's amazing that you were down a coding rabbit hole, like Neo from the Matrix, by the sound of it.
Completely.
Yes.
Completely.
Yeah. And now you're launching an assault on the UK government's policy and perspective on this. So should I bring up the screen at my end then as you talk through it?
Yeah, please. Yeah, and then we'll go through it together. I'm just.
Yep. Fair enough.
Terrible.
That's quite amazing, Jacqueline. Why didn't we ask Jacqueline before? Because she said, "Why don't you just ring him?" And so I did, and there you were. So she's absolutely right. So I'm going into present mode here on my my end here in the presentation.
Perfect. So am I, and then I will. I'll tell you when to change slides.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. So we're doing it, folks. We are talking about context, chaos, and control here, aren't we?
We are. Yeah. So the context of this decision is. I'll just take you back through what's happened in the last couple of months. So
yeah.
On May the 7th, the UK government announced that Portugal was the only major holiday destination to be placed on the green list.
Yeah.
We saw a huge response from the British public, booking transport and hotels. And this really sort of threw a lifeline to many operators in the travel and particular hospitality sectors. You can have your own view on what happened in Porto in the football match, but I think that's a red herring, really. Anyway, the Delta, also called the Nepal variant, has been around since October. But over the course of the last 4 or 5 weeks, it's become more prevalent in Portugal, but also in the UK. And then on June the 3rd, the UK government did another bloody U-turn, which they really are becoming the government defined by its U-turns. And they put Portugal on the amber list, which has caused chaos and anguish for tourists. We saw massive price hikes in air flights to get back in order to beat the deadline yesterday. And then price dropped by 60-70% overnight when the deadline expired. It's affected tourists who now don't know if they're going to end up going back to get a job if they couldn't get back before the deadline, so they're going back to a compulsory 10-day lockdown, potentially losing their job as a result. and the sectors and workers, both in the UK and Portugal, are again placed at risk, financial and economic risk. So that's what's happened.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely true. If you go to the next slide.
Yep. Okay.
So the rise in confirmed cases. Yeah.
Yep. Got it.
And these are two slides from Our World in Data that show the daily new confirmed cases per million people. And on the left, you see a picture of the whole of the pandemic. And so you can see that there's a very slight increase on the right-hand end there. And then you see a zoom in on that since April, basically, in the confirmed cases per million people. And so you can see, yes, there's been a rise, but it hasn't got as high as it did in early April. It started to tick down again. And if you consider what the UK government, when the UK government made their decision on May the 7th, they were looking at what had happened, not just over that previous 4 weeks, but the fact that Portugal generally was just staying in a very low range since the end of February this year. And so, okay, so there was a rise in confirmed cases, but it wasn't meteoric, and it hadn't really gone past the recent highs. So if we go into the next slide, basically I'm asking, is this a real rise in incidence in the country? And I don't think it is, because we have to consider how many people are being tested.
Yeah.
And why they're being tested. So in other words, are those being tested more likely to, or less likely to be positive because of the motivation in order to get tested? So are people being tested more because of symptoms, or are they being tested more because they want to go on holiday, or because they want, for whatever reason, anyway? So if you go to the next slide, and we can see the rise in testing.
Yep, got it.
And the rise in tests per 1,000 people, again, going back to the beginning of the pandemic on the left, and recently, the last couple of months again, on the right. And you can see the trend in testing is still upwards, and has continued to increase. So we've had a rise in confirmed cases, but we've had a rise in tests. And if we go to the next slide,
okay,
this is the important one in terms of cases and testing. We're looking at the positivity rate. So in other words, of the number of people being tested, how many of those are positive? And at the beginning of April, it was nearly 2%, and it's dropped down to just over 1%. So when Johnson and Co were making their decision at the beginning of May, they were looking at a figure of around 1%, between 0.5 and 1%. And now we're seeing a figure of certainly less than 1.25%. So again, not a huge increase. If we go to the next slide, you could argue that because of all this confusion over why are people getting tested, how many people are being tested, a more important measure of the severity of the pandemic in the country is the increase in clinical morbidity. So if you go to the next slide, which is the hospitalizations, and this is number of COVID patients on the left since the beginning of the pandemic. No, sorry, for the last 2 months. And the number of weekly new admissions for COVID-19. Now, let me just explain. on the left, you can see an increase in number of COVID patients towards the end of that period. But how does that tally with the continued fall in new hospital admissions? What it means is one of two things. Either fewer people are dying shortly after being admitted with COVID. So as a result, the cumulative number of people in hospital would become higher because you're not losing people to mortality. Or it might mean that people are being kept in longer. But in any event, even whatever explains that small rise in the number in hospital for the last couple of weeks, the trend is obviously very much on the decrease, both in terms of the numbers in hospital and the weekly new hospital admissions. And they've halved. The weekly new hospital admissions have halved since the beginning of April. And in fact, even since April the 25th, which is the date of the data that Johnson and Co. Should have been looking at. And it's now virtually half of that. If we go into the next slide.
At that point there, Doc, when you refer to Johnson and Co., you're referring to British government, aren't you, rather than the pharmaceutical company? Just so that everybody is clear about that.
Insofar as they're inseparable. Yeah.
yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, there is an overlap, obviously. But okay.
Sorry, that's a political point in case anyone decides there's a legal case to be made there. So if you go into the next slide, which is the intensive care occupancy and mortality. And what I've done here is given you a comparison between the UK and Portugal.
Oh, hold on. I've lost it now. Where should I be? Is a slide called "Is there an increase in severity"?
That's correct.
Okay.
So on the bottom left, you've got two lines. This is the number of COVID patients in intensive care per million population.
Yeah, we're in the right place.
So the bottom line there is United Kingdom. And we know that the United Kingdom have done better as a result of the vaccinations. And then the top line is Portugal. So, Portugal has been worse, but there's been a continued gap. But both countries are seeing inexorable reduction in the number of patients in ITU per million population. And so, once again, and this is only for the last 2 months, so there's a steep decline even in the last 2 months of patients in ICU. And if we look at the daily new, on the right, the daily new confirmed deaths per million people, then actually Portugal and the UK are both pretty much in lockstep in terms of numbers of deaths. So potentially, I don't know, maybe Portugal has a lower threshold for ICU admission, or maybe they keep them in ICU longer. But in terms of the ultimate measure of severity, which is mortality, then Portugal and the UK are indistinguishable. And so why, it's impossible, it's absolutely impossible to say that there is evidence that Portugal has significantly increased incidence or significantly increased severity in all of the measures of the pandemic. And so if you go to the next slide, we can look at what is the fuss as far as Delta is concerned. And these are the quotes. These two top quotes are from the UK's technical briefing the Department of Health's technical briefing, and they say that both English and Scottish analyses continue to support the finding of reduced vaccine effectiveness, which has increased to high confidence. So they believe that they've got a highly confident set of data that the vaccine is less effective to Delta. Well, if you look at that data, it's true that there's potentially reduced vaccine effectiveness. However, it's only just increased to high confidence, and the proportion increase is not large. And then they say that new early data from England and Scotland suggests a possible increased risk of hospitalisation compared to Alpha. Well, it's early data, it's a suggestion, and it certainly isn't anything near statistically confident at the moment. And if we go back to the previous slide, then, in the previous couple of slides, I've shown quite clearly that hospitalisations have continued to drop. And if we had seen a takeover of the Delta variant from the Alpha variant, then you would expect that hospitalisation to start rising. Yeah. Now, yes, it's early days, and yes, we know obviously that hospitalisation tends to lag behind increased incidence by a couple of weeks. But I've shown you data for 2 months, which has shown progressive fall. And so at best, we are in the early days where we can't say whether or not there is an increased risk of an increased severity. And that's as far as you can go towards supporting the UK government's decision on a clinical basis. The Delta variant was first sequenced in India, and first of all was called the India or the Nepal variant, but it is now also the most common variant in the UK. It accounts for some 60% of the recently sequenced tests. So given the fact that it's already rife in the UK, how can the activity of Delta be a reason for the misery caused by what is at best a premature policy reversal?
Yeah.
It makes absolutely no sense. So if you go to the next slide, I think it's this is my personal opinion, but these are possible other reasons. So the UK balance of payments, they do not want lots of sterling going over to Europe to be spent outside the UK. Their wish to make sure that the UK hospitality sector benefits more from the relaxation of the lockdown in the UK, and possibly also a cynical attempt to counter the imminent criticism within the public inquiry on COVID for acting too late in 2020 and wanting to be seen to be doing something now. So I think that they are overcompensating for their inadequacies last year.
Okay.
And that's it, Carl. The next slide's just where my sources are from. So some from BBC, some from the gov.uk, and all the data from ourworldindata.org. Excellent.
Thank you very much for that. A few comments coming in, as you might expect there, Doc. Are you happy to stay with us for a bit longer?
Yeah, of course.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. Because it's all mixed up with brands of tea, Portuguese driving or driving in Portugal, as well as a few comments about what you're saying. Mag says, weird how confirmed cases are rising with all the vaccinations. How would you respond to that? Because I mean, from a lay scientific point of view, and I don't know if the vaccine does work in this particular way, but when people have flu vaccinations, that if they were all tested for flu afterwards, would it be true that they would have the flu? They would be tested positively for flu. Is that part of a spike or what could be seen as a wave where so many people are being vaccinated? Does that not throw the objective view of testing?
Well, if you go back to my third slide, which is the rise in cases, which does show a small rise, and I, emphasize the small rise. But you then also go to my rise in testing, which also shows a small rise. So incidence, the case numbers are based on how many people are being tested. And the important slide there is slide number 6, which is the cases per test, the positivity rate.
Yeah.
And I do not believe that small increase over the last month, 6 weeks, but month in terms of the data that was available, I do not believe that counts as a significant spike.
Okay, for whatever reason. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
put it this way, Carl.
Yeah.
Vaccines do not affect the number of people who get tested.
Okay. All right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I mean,
Yeah.
I take your point that if it's insignificant anyway, it's insignificant. And I would agree with you that the numbers don't. I mean, I would extend it further. I was like, why are we having so many lockdowns worldwide if things are so insignificant as they would appear to be, and there are far greater problems in the world that we might be addressing? But anyway, that takes us off topic a little bit in terms of the UK government's thinking, although this is quite a good little sort of microcosm, isn't it, of global, of possible global moves, which is why we're including it. Doug says, our friend Doug here, this is a bit odd to me. I'm not entirely happy about Portugal going off the green list, but Johnson has been criticised widely for inaction or late action. Now he's been hammered for doing something. I mean, it's got to be something. You can't just be given credit for doing something, can you? Because he might do 12 hours of yoga a day, and look, he's trying to do something. It's got to be the right thing to do.
There has to be evidence that what he's doing is supported, and what he's doing. I mean, he is now doing exactly what he said he didn't want to do last year, which is to act prematurely and damage the economy and damage people's lives and livelihoods. And he's doing, when in the face of all the data, when he needed to do something last year, he did nothing. And now in the face of data which shows that there is not yet evidence to support doing something, he's doing something.
Yeah. Doug also adds only 1.5% of returning tourists tested positive coming back from Portugal there, which I guess, which further adds to like, why are we doing this then? Thomas responding to Mags, still only less than 42% of the population is fully vaccinated and 61% with just the one dose. So plenty of people still not fully benefiting from vaccination right now. I mean, do you see that as a problem, Doc?
I don't see it as a problem. I think it's unfortunate that in Portugal we suffered from everything else the same in Europe, across Europe, the availability of vaccines, and in Portugal we have a particular problem in terms of availability of clinical staff. But we have a rapidly increasing number of people being vaccinated, and despite the low numbers that have been vaccinated, we still have very low positive test rates.
Yeah, and arguably we have more important things to concern ourselves with. Bearders22, it's been suggested that the UK government is covering its backside in advance of next year's independent pandemic review. They are damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I mean, why would any UK government worry that much about a report? I mean, the likes of Chilcot, do these reports really actually do anything? And aren't the people, if you look at Tony Blair, it's not like it's damaged his ability to speak publicly or his profile or his ability to earn money. Why would any government be worried about a review?
I think, I don't know. I mean, maybe they think that cynically that the British public are more concerned about their ability to travel overseas on holiday than they are about bombing people in Iraq. But, I don't
Okay.
know.
All right. Nubianet says the vaccines are working against the Delta variant as long as the older person took it. I wish Americans resisting the vaccine would see this information. Here, everyone over 12 can get it. In the United States, says Nubianet. From the Algarve this morning, live info from Edmundo, as 353 active cases at the moment, or has 353 active cases at the moment in the Algarve. Lisbon area, 7,000. The north has over 5,000. So again, you kind of the statistics are befuddling, are they not? The UK Delta data is obfuscated because of herd immunity effects, natural and artificially acquired, kicking in, which is a good thing. Portugal has to be cautious as it has its lower jab rate. From Will there, both not related. The two Thompsons commenting this morning, both the Scottish administration and Drakeford Labour administration in Wales were dead against PT ever going green, says Doug. But yeah, I mean, it's so many opposition parties seem to have gone completely on that side, don't they? Like, don't do anything, a total fear. And there doesn't seem to be any progressive opposition in the UK. Labour administration in Wales, except within the Tories' own party, I think. Labour administration in Wales have always advised no foreign travel, which makes them even more cautious than Boris and co. I think that's true. Stephen Wells, re-positive test positive rate, 0.75% up to 1% is a 30% increase. That sounds significant. Yes, and so do statistics that look at cases per million. And if they've only gone up from 8 to 12, that seems so insignificant to me, Doc. I mean, you know, we know this about statistics, don't we?
Of course we do, and I take the point about the increase in percentages of percentages. So I understand, obviously, that 0.75 to 1.25 is a large increase. However, this is short-term data, and if you look at if you go back to the information that I showed in terms of the trends in testing against cases, then I don't think that you can say that really that we have seen an increase in positivity.
Yeah. This is a really interesting question, Doc. I'd love to hear your answer on this and other people's. This is for you, though, from Bearders22. Why is it that travel insurers ask every question about your health, i.e., do you have heart condition, cholesterol, etc., but not the question, how many COVID jabs have you had? Is this because insurance companies work backwards? I mean, they work on what are they called? What are those tables called? Actuary tables, and they're going to work on the data they get, not on the WHO's or governmental recommendations, right? They're in the money business. Sorry,
that's true, and that is true. And the other thing is, I guess they're are they? I mean, I don't know because I haven't bought travel insurance recently. But if they're excluding COVID-related incidents, then they're not bothered, I guess. And if they are covering COVID-related repatriation, then I don't know. It would make sense for them to be asking the question, but as you say, they tend to work backwards from their results.
And they're in the money business, right? Let's not forget that the insurance companies are about making money, not helping you go abroad. I mean, you couldn't be forgiven for thinking that, could you? Or wasn't it nice that these people will help me if I get ill abroad? But they do it because they make a hell of a lot of money from doing it. That's what insurance is about. Testing positive for COVID when there's a very virulent variant. And is it though, Nubianet? But hospitalization and serious illness is not going up with it. Even in Portugal, more of the population at risk is vaccinated. Even in Portugal, I don't really understand that, Nubianet. Do you get that, Andy?
No, I don't. Right. Sorry.
Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's tricky in the speed of wanting to knock out a comment there. A meaning can get lost. I'm not really sure what you mean there, Nubianet, but please come back at us with that. Gary, a keen observer of this situation. Worldometer statistics have a weekly comparison figure on how the virus has increased in incidence. Portugal 2 weeks ago was up 25%. This week it's about 11%. This week the UK is up 61%. Yeah, sounds really terrifying and dramatic, but what are the actual numbers there, Gary? Edmundo is saying, what about the UK government? Thousands of families lost the money of their holidays, triple the price of flights. and an exaggeration in COVID tests as well, says Edmundo.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it, isn't it? It's becoming a single issue thing, and other areas worthy of consideration, like people's mental health, financial health, their finances, their livelihood, their potential longevity as economic beings, seems to me, and to so many more other people, a much greater peril that we're about to face, if not with some people facing it already, of course.
Yeah, I mean, Carl, if you go back and look at the original peaks in the pandemic, I mean, they were frightening, and it would have been right to do. It was right to do all those lockdowns. He was wrong to delay doing everything he did, and we needed to do stuff. However, right now we are not at those levels, nowhere near those levels, and we're seeing panic mongering, scaremongering, and cynical manipulation. That's what I'm saying is happening.
Yeah, and some people have been saying this all along, Doc. I guess there is an increasing sense, perhaps, that the government's our best interests are not being served by governments because they have other agendas, as you put it there. I mean, some people have always thought that forever, but this is a situation. This is a situation in which this could be brought into a sort of stark spotlight. And rather innocently, naively, you might think. I was thinking this morning, actually, what are governments and politicians for? Given that I was talking to you this morning, and it clearly, and I'm not just aiming this at politicians. I'm aiming this at all of us, because it's kind of like, it's said, isn't it? We get the governments we deserve, because if we don't take responsibility for our situations, others will, and clearly they seem to be doing that. But the great problem, it seems to me, is that there isn't a vision. It's not easily discernible so we're seeing all these responses and these measures, but we've lost sight of what the governments are actually trying to do. And it makes me wonder, do they even know themselves, or are they just responding? To illustrate that, you can be the sort of person, can't you, who gets up every day and just deals with the incoming situation of your life. And, by virtue of circumstance, people do have to do that, don't they? They're just responding to, paying their bills, keeping their heads above water. And there are others who you might say are more fortunate in life, who are working towards a vision. Okay, so they're not just constantly fighting day-to-day circumstances. They have a vision of their life, and all their decisions of their daily life are in response to their grander vision. Now, if we use that as a measure of politics, and of politicians and governments, it seems they are of the former case, right? That they are just battling day to day to save their reputations, to save their own personal and financial interests, to look good in reviews, to just respond to, well, that government did that, so we've got to do that. Can you see any government in the world that is working towards a noble and great vision for its population?
No.
Simple answer. Okay.
But Carl, let me put it this way. I have no faith, not just in our governments, but in our current system of democracy. And if you go back to Athens, 500 BC or whatever, their
cast me mind
government. Back. Yeah. You remember their executives, their governments, effectively. The members were only paid what they earned in their ordinary jobs before they went into government. So there was no financial benefit to being in government. The problem we have is that even for fairly well-paid people, going into politics, a national level or even a regional level, is financially lucrative, both while you're a politician and after you leave office. Yes. And therefore, people have a personal motivation that should be completely absent when going into politics.
Yes.
You should go into politics because you have a vision. And not because you want to improve your personal financial situation. And until we organize our politics in a way that takes that into account, we will get no better systems of government.
I tend to agree with you, and it doesn't even need to be a kind of moral or political analysis, does it? It's like if you compare and contrast people who go into any area of public life based on a vision, and their vision is clearly stated, you do get different results to the people who obviously go into it very cynically. And it's no secret, is it, that there are some politicians involved in the pandemic situation who are subscribers to the notion of disaster capitalism, and no good disaster will go wasted. There are people doing that. It's obvious to see. You have to look very far to see that. And the question is then, for me, is like which sort of politicians do you want? And also, whilst there are always, whenever there's one finger pointing forward, there are three pointing back. How are we with that? Are we coming from a noble and grand vision ourselves in our daily lives, or are we just cynically exploiting situations? As Edmundo seems to be saying, some 5 stars are in the Algarve. 5-star hotels selling antigen tests for €150 when people can do that for 45. This is what's going on. And, you could argue that those people with those 5-star hotels also have to make a living. They're about to make a massive loss. But again, that would point possibly back to the system we operate in, right, Doc?
Yeah.
Okay. Doc always has an interesting listen. Absolutely right. Thank you for sharing that with us today. That might go in the forum for further discussion, I suspect. You're happy for that presentation to be shared widely, I guess, Doc?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's going on YouTube, so
here we go. Yeah, okay. Too late now. They all have a vision, Doc. It's a vision of cash in their wallets, supporting the cynical view there, the cynical view of that cynical kind of behaviour. It means that the effects are more dramatic on countries dependent on tourism like Portugal, Spain, Greece. Yeah, and therein lies another conversation, right? Is it right to be in that precarious situation? I think we've discovered that this year in the last 18 months.
The problem, of course, with the Mediterranean countries is that they are at the mercy of the Northern European countries because, as you rightly say, they're very much at the mercy of the tourist euro or pound.
Yeah.
And so not only do they tend to have to do what the North say, but if the North decide they're not going to allow their people to come here, then they've got a problem.
Yeah. Thanks for the statistics. I think you're thanked by Namaste Dave there. Bon dia from Porto this morning. Nubianet says more of the older people who are more at risk of serious illness or death could be vaccinated and protected, even in Portugal. I think that is a general trend, Nubianet. But there's just a supply and processing problem, it would appear. There would be less hospitalization and death, is your view there, Nubianet. Doc, thank you so much. We're coming up to 1:30. The hour of 10, not 9. Been here for nearly 90 minutes. I thank you for that, Doc, and I thank everybody for the comments that I wasn't able to get to this morning about tea bags, about driving. It's certainly worth a look over these comments, folks, because I'm not going to get to them all myself this morning. While we have you here in these last few minutes, Doc, anything else that you were considering sharing this morning, or anything you want to say about your life in Portugal currently?
Very briefly, 2 things. Personally, I've just had to pay a ridiculous amount of money to fix my car because we managed to let a load of screen wash leak into the relays, which are kept under the boot, which seems like a ridiculous place to store stuff which might get damaged by fluid. Yes. But there we go. And the other thing is more that people will be more interested in, perhaps, particularly as we hopefully get more engaged in political life, is that British nationals who are here wanting to register to vote can finally get to do so. I managed to alert the consulate to this a couple of months ago after I'd had a series of high-volume discussions at our Freguesia office. Anyway, you take your passport and your barcode down to the Freguesia and you get registered. And when SEF finally give you a proper residence document, you go and update the registration, but you can go and get registered now. So a handful of people who want to get involved in Portuguese politics to vote in the local election, or even if they're able to stand in the local election, you can now go and register to do so.
Oh, good on you, Doc. Check you out in touch with the consulate there. Wine, tea, driving. Let's just do a couple more of these because I'm sure you'll have something to say about the driving style here. I finally had a Portuguese Rosé Vinha Verde. Yum. That's interesting. It was fruity, a hint of effervescence. So easy to drain a bottle on your own. Absolutely. The Vinha Verdes, of whichever hue, is very drinkable. $9.99 at Whole Foods. My tip for driving here, go at your own speed. Don't be hassled or rushed. Very good advice, Garvo. Let the rest get on with it. Also, don't be surprised if someone stops for a chat in the middle of the road. Deborah Davies saying, I've driven in every country I've ever lived in. Surprised Portugal even makes for a conversation. It's certainly not the worst place I've driven in. Just do it, is the advice to our earlier correspondent. We got a little bit concerned by some of the comments being made about driving in Portugal.
Portugal driving is great, and the stopping in the middle of the road, well, it's just like being at home in Birmingham in Handsworth.
Exactly.
People used to stop in the middle of the road, which, anyway.
Yeah, and you're not going to be blasting on your hooter there, are you? Good advice on driving in Portugal. Don't drive same side as UK. That's really good advice, Doug. Thank you very much for that. PG Tips apparently is proper head swinging after a couple of weeks of little tea. And an excellent comment, I think. Oh, don't forget about the magic middle road. What is the magic middle road, do you think, that Aoife's talking about there? Is that how people drive in the middle of the road, which I mentioned earlier on? I'm not sure there. It could be, but they always get back to the right side eventually. It can get a little bit dicey with that. Final comment, because this is so important to certain sectors of this community. This is some inside info if you like your tea. The red box of Lidl's tea is not half bad. The Lord Nelson variety. Can you imagine that, Doc? The people at Lidl, I think a German company, thinking, what should we call the British tea that makes those Britishers buy it? Lord Nelson, that's the one. So buy the red label, not the yellow label. Grab the Lord Nelson when you're in Lidl's, is the recommendation of Fiona Worrell. Anything else to say about driving, Doc? Because I know you've driven all over the world.
I think the Portuguese drivers come in two varieties mostly. Very courteous and safe and totally ridiculous. Occasionally you'll find a lot of the latter, particularly on a Friday or a Saturday night.
Yes.
But apart from that, generally. Portuguese drivers are certainly safer and courteous than most I've seen in the UK.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Doc. Thanks for your presentation. We're bang on 10:30. Time to go. Have a great day, everybody. I'll be talking to a lady from Castelo Branco tomorrow morning about a hot dog shop, of course. And a final note from Garvo, we won't mention Lady Hamilton. Oh, actually, from another of his notes, yes, don't forget to celebrate Portugal Day tomorrow. Officially Day of Portugal. Camões, the great cultural icon, and the Portuguese communities. Okay, National Day of Portugal, celebrated annually on June the 10th. So have a good one. It will be a holiday tomorrow. Don't be trying to get to doing any official business. I'm off now to go and look up what happened with Lady Hamilton. Take care. Bye for now. Beijinhos, abraços. Muito obrigado. Andy, take care. Bye for now.
Bye.